Thanks, Jared. So my name's Amber Clark and I work at the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, and I manage Victoria's Waterway Health Program. So my background, although I'm not a fisher person, I love bugs. So my research background is in aquatic invertebrates, and I spent a couple of years studying macroinvertebrates up on top of the Great Dividing Range in very small headwater streams. So I'll be doing a joint presentation today with Mark Turner from the Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority, and I think it's really important point that demonstrates the work that DELP does in terms of trying to improve the health of waterways across Victoria happens in partnership with our 10 catchment management authorities and Melbourne Water in the metropolitan area as well. So we all know that healthy rivers can provide a whole range of benefits for Victorians. Our program's certainly not just about the environment. If we have healthy rivers, these can support recreational fishing, opportunities for boating, swimming, protection of cultural heritage sites, and also things like irrigated agriculture and drinking water and other economic benefits. Of course, what everyone is interested in here is the fact that healthy waterways and healthy riparian vegetation support both fish populations and those opportunities that you all really love to go and enjoy recreational fishing. So Dan's presentation really struck with me when he talked about the fact that if we take care of fish and the habitat, the fishing will take care of itself. In the same way, I think if we improve the health of our waterways, that will have fantastic benefits for recreational fishing. We know how important it is to Victoria's economy as well. So latest reports just come out saying that $7.1 billion worth of economic activity in Victoria and $2.6 billion of direct outputs. That's really significant and something that makes governments sit up and take notice. And we also know, because we hear all the time, anglers are really keen to be out there and working to improve fish habitat. So we would really like more opportunities to do that work together with you. Just a little bit about our program. The role that we have at DELP is really about preparing policy and getting money, so that's really important, but it's the CMAs who do all of that on-ground river restoration work. And this diagram just sums it up. We invest in management activities and we focus on trying to improve different elements of the health of waterways. So that might be habitat or water quality, better flow connectivity. And when we improve that health of the waterways, not only does it have environmental values, it can also support these other things, social values like fishing, cultural heritage sites and economic values. So a really important part of the programs we invest in are about riparian management. So government, working with the CMAs and particularly in partnership with landholders, we undertake a lot of activities like revegetating riparian zones, putting up fences to try and control stock access to waterways, and providing things like off-stream watering points so the stock don't need to go down to the water to have that drink. And while improving the health of waterways, this also means that we have the opportunity to improve public access, so putting in things like gates and stiles on crown frontages along waterways, and again enhance those recreational opportunities. One of the other things that we've touched on a little bit today is the fact that it can be a bit of a long-term game. So riparian restoration is something that might take 5 or 10 or even more years. This is a pretty famous photo that we use a lot in presentations. It's the Genoa River out in East Gippsland. Over here on the left-hand side, you can see in 1989, it was pretty much totally devoid of riparian vegetation, lots of sand in the river. And then in 2009, this is the photo on the right, after a very significant program of riparian restoration, it now looks like a much healthier river. So willows is a topic that is obviously one that lots of people are quite passionate about. Just a couple of quick points here. Willows are one of 20 weeds of national significance. While willows can provide some habitat and food for aquatic invertebrates and trout, we do know that native vegetation is a more high quality source of food and habitat. And this is one of the bugs from my PhD research. you can see how heavily that they rely on those native leaves to build their cases. So government invests in managing willows as part of a broader program of riparian improvement. It's a small part of what we do to improve the overall health of rivers. And we are aware, though, of course, that there have been some concerns raised in community and across Victoria about perhaps the ways that that might have been done historically, or about things like the time lag between when a willow might be removed and when native vegetation is planted. So at the state level, and Mark will talk more in a moment about the regional level, we've just initiated a couple of projects to have a look at, well, the best practice guidelines out there about removing willows. Are they good enough? Are they still up to date? Do they need to be reviewed? Or perhaps we just need to communicate them better, or make sure that people know that they're out there. So we're doing a review on that at the moment. When that's finished, we're thinking that we would like to work as an industry, so the department and the CMAs, to consider those results and see whether there's some principles or common concepts that we can all agree to in terms of willow management. And we're also aware that there needs to be much better communication about these works. So willows are a serious weed. In a lot of cases, it is very beneficial to remove them, but that needs to be done in a way where people understand when and why it's happening, and even have an opportunity to participate in those works, or talk with the CMA about when the best time or places might be to do those. So I'll hand over now to Mark, who'll take you through the regional examples. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Amber, and afternoon all. I think a lot of what I'll talk about here will be reiterating a fair bit of what's been talked about today, but that's okay, that's part of it. As Amber said, waterway management in Victoria is undertaken by regional CMAs. Jeff Brennan, who's here today, and myself represent the Golden Broken CMA here. In the audience, we also have Trent Gibson from the North Central CMA, and Nat Dando and Andrew Briggs from the North East CMA. So we've got a few representatives here today. Each CMA has a waterway strategy that identifies priorities for the next 8 years. Typical themes, chapters or issues of waterway strategies include water quality, environmental water, climate change, and the management of riparian land. The key focus of my talk today, and a fair bit of what we've heard about today. Waterway frontage or riparian areas, pretty well the same thing, an interchangeable term that I'll use throughout today, and John described pretty well earlier what a riparian zone is. Typically in rural Victoria, what we're trying to achieve here is productive and sustainable agriculture occurring alongside a healthy and diverse riparian zone, which will provide for good water quality and an overall healthy river for a range of benefits. There are a range of issues in trying to do this. Ownership of riparian land is one. There are a range of issues of that, not to mention issues associated when a river moves. The breakaway downstream of Lake Eildon is a great example of that. Pest, plant and animal management is another. Stock access, floods and fires, which have sort of been covered a bit today already. Now on to willow management, the hot topic, been covered a fair bit today. Just let me start by saying that the Golden Broken CMA has agreed to not establish any new willow management sites during the 3-year wild trout program on the areas of the Golden Broken region that are under the study. So the Dalatite River, Howker, Jamison and Upper Golden Rivers. This is so that we can minimise the variables while the study's been undertaken, and also that we can learn from the riparian management components of the study. There are many species of willows in many parts of our landscape. We recognise willows have a range of pros and cons, as has already been touched on. They're a lovely shady tree that provide a whole heap of shelter for us, stock and waterways, but there are also a range of cons, mostly to do with willows in and around waterways and wetlands. They can choke a river channel, causing erosion and widening. The mass total annual leaf fall that causes issues for aquatic invertebrates having food source throughout the year, but can also include water quality issues such as low dissolved oxygen. A willow sitting alongside a red gum on the bank will use about twice the amount of water as a red gum from the soil profile. But if that willow's in the river, it can use 7 to 8 times the amount of water that a red gum does on the bank. This is more significant in hotter and drier years where you have less water in a river. Willows are also a softwood and do not produce the type and quality of long-lasting habitat that a hardwood native does. They also spread easily, vegetatively or via seed. This is the type of riparian management that we're trying to alter. Uncontrolled stock access. Willows are the invasive variety that are in poor condition and encroaching into the waterway. Little to no ground cover, therefore giving us no buffer from the surrounding landscape for water quality. By the way, this photo is taken along the Golden River Tail Race, the most popular inland fishing river, so the 2012 Inland Fishing Survey tells us, and it is popular because of trout fishing. The aims at such a site would be to undertake a voluntary agreement with landholders. So that's a very important point. When we work with landholders, it's voluntary. They have to agree to work with us. We can't make them do anything. So we want to work with landholders in a voluntary agreement to fence off the river, to reduce stock access, so we can start getting a vegetative buffer strip to reduce sediments and nutrients entering the waterway. Other activities can include off-stream watering, revegetation if needed. Revegetation is normally undertaken, but is not needed in all situations. For example, if you've got good existing native vegetation that can regenerate itself. Here's just another example of a before photo where land management practices are impacting the health of the waterway, and post, where a good buffer strip has been established to improve the health of the waterway. You'll have seen these photos already in John's presentation, but riparian restoration, especially where it involves willow management, is a long-term project. Some things can be fixed really quickly, like stock access by putting up a fence. Others, like the establishment of a high-quality buffer strip, can take many years. And it's not without risk. Where willow management occurs, there is a short-term risk of increased erosion and other issues. This is why willow management should be undertaken in short stretches at a time. In the Golden Broken region, our approach is to do around 300 metres in a hit where there's a heavy infestation. Even though a well-established buffer strip has been produced here in a relatively short period of time, it'll be many years before we see the likes of hollow-bearing trees and good-sized snags provided to the waterway. Restoration is a long-term proposition. Just to tie it all back, again, this is what we're trying to achieve. Healthy waterway frontages, buffering surrounding land uses, providing us with good quality water so that a range of environmental, social and economic values can be gained, which includes fishing. And just to show it can happen, here's a recent shot of the King Parrot Creek in our catchment, where government investment, coupled with significant community involvement, has improved the health trajectory of the creek. As highlighted earlier by the likes of Dan and John, there are opportunities to improve our waterways for the benefits, including fishing. I'd encourage any of you to discuss ideas you might have to improve our waterways and to get involved. Thank you.
Authorised by Victorian Government, 1 Treasury Place, Melbourne.